Hello, listeners. This is Kat, and welcome back to Put Your Hands Up Podfics. This will be the reading of the fic entitled Unexpected Friends. Here's the summary. UA has a new optional class called Quirk Theories. Anyone who wishes to take the class can. But who would want to take another class? Well, Midoriya is all in, and so is Shinsou, Monoma, and Hatsume. This is a series of related one-shots about the unexpected friendship between four people that don't always make sense to those around them. This fic is 20,000 words with 7 chapters. Here's Chapter 1. Chapter 1. Unexpected. It was a normal day at UA High. The class of 1A was chatting away before class started. Midoriya was by himself that morning as he was writing frantically in his notebook about quirks. His love of learning about quirks was the main reason he was such a fanboy of many heroes, but as embarrassing as it can get for him, he would not stop openly admiring them. Aizawa finally came into the room, and they all quickly filed into their seats. Aizawa usually looked like he didn't care, but today he seemed to be just plain irritated. Once he made his way to the front of the room, he began to speak. All right, so UA has decided to add an optional class for you to take if you choose to do so. The class is called Quirk Theories, and as the name implies, the class will be just about quirks and how they're commonly studied, and quirk theories. If any of you are interested, you can sign up after class. Now let's begin for the day. Midoriya was radiating excitement. A class just for studying quirks was a dream come true for him. As soon as class was over, the students were talking about the new class. Are any of you going to sign up? Kirishima asked. Nah, I don't need any more work added to what I already have. I don't see the need, honestly. Yeah, I agree. Kirishima then turned to where Midoriya's seat was. Hey, Midoriya, are you... He noticed the seat was empty. Bakugo told them that he had left as soon as class ended, and that was answer enough for all of them. A week later, the new class had begun. Most of the students were from the support department, but there were still a handful for students from other classes. Midoriya was in his assigned seat as he waited for the class to begin. Students were still coming in. Half of the class had already arrived when Midoriya saw Shinsou walk in. He was a bit surprised to see him here, but after giving it some thought, it made sense. He knew Shinsou wanted to be in the hero course, and his quirk was brainwashing people, so if he knew how their quirk worked, it could prove to his advantage. As Shinsou quietly made his way to sit down, he spotted Midoriya. The green-haired boy waved and gave a small smile, to which Shinsou awkwardly gave a small wave back after a moment. Shinsou was not prepared to see him there, and had less of a clue as to why he would even be there. He had no real need to be. Even more, he was not ready to be greeted by him. Shinsou couldn't see why he would be there from any angle he looked at it. Eventually, curiosity overtook him. Hey, Midoriya, he said, turning to face him. The other looked up to face him. Oh, hey, Shinsou. Out of curiosity, why are you taking this class? He stated bluntly. Oh, it's 'cause I wanted to. Now Shinsou was really confused. Why would he be so interested in quirks to the point of wanting to do a class that would cause him more work? He had a powerful quirk that he felt didn't need much thought, just practice to control. So, you're saying that you're taking this class for fun? Kinda, but not really. I've always loved learning and studying quirks since I was very little. My quirk manifested very late, so for years I didn't have a quirk to use, so I kinda got drawn into learning about other people's quirks. Even when my quirk did finally manifest, I was still very interested in learning about them and how they worked. Call me a nerd if you want, but I find them fascinating. Besides, think about how useful it would be to be able to understand the quirk of the person you're fighting, and not just surface-level knowledge, but in-depth how they function. It would help in taking them down easier and maybe even preventing casualties. Shinsou was taken back. This boy was full of surprises to him. He wasn't just a person who felt that they would be the #1 hero because they had an amazing quirk, but was working hard to be there. A small smile appeared on Shinsou's face, away from the watching eyes of Midoriya. Before any more friendly conversation could continue, a certain blond, gray-eyed boy walked in the room. Monoma had calmly walked into the room, but that only lasted a few seconds. As soon as Monoma spotted Midoriya, all hell broke loose. A 1A student is here, Monoma began to mock. And it's Midoriya Izuku of all people. What could you possibly hope to gain from this class? Bet you're only here to look better. Your class only ever cares about the attention. Midoriya frantically tried to give an explanation, but had been overwhelmed by the sudden verbal attack. Monoma triumphantly went to go sit down. Many in the class were fully confused by the interaction and didn't know how to react. Shinsou turned to Midoriya. What was that? He quickly explained the rivalry between Class 1A and 1B that most really ignored, but for some reason, Monoma always amped up. And you just let him say that? I was never really good at standing up for myself. I tend to freeze up a lot. When I was younger, Kachan... you probably know him as Bakugo. He used to tease me a lot, so I'm used to this kind of stuff. Shinsou raised an eyebrow. You know, as a hero in training, you should really learn to stand up for yourself. I know, but old habits die hard, you know? Just when Midoriya thought things had finally settled, Hatsume was the last person to arrive. As soon as she saw Midoriya, she almost ran to him. Hi, Midoriya! Hey, Hatsume, he greeted shyly. Hatsume hugged him before excitedly ranting about being in a class with him and how fun it would be. Well, she's never hugged me before. If Midoriya wasn't confused before, he was now. Monoma was shocked to see how close the pink-haired girl was to Midoriya. Shinsou was beginning to worry about what lied ahead if he decided to be around Midoriya, and the poor boy in question had a million questions in his mind. The clock showed that it was time to begin class, but there was no teacher present. Suddenly, the door opened to reveal a very tired sensei. Midoriya was left speechless as he immediately saw who it was. It made much more sense now why Aizawa had been more than a bit irritated earlier. Let's start, Aizawa said, not giving much effort to care. The first few days of the class had been rough for most everyone involved. Midoriya had to face the constant Monoma rants and Hatsume constantly overwhelming him. But unlike with Hatsume, who he could be 100% okay with, Monoma felt the need to call him out for every minor mistake. It was beginning to get very tiring. Midoriya began to look more tired as he had not one but two people mocking him. On the bright side, Shinsou had gotten closer to the poor boy, but the purple insomniac refused to make any other friends easily. It took a while, but he began to talk a bit with Hatsume. To call them friends would be a stretch, as the air between them had remained awkward. Aizawa had managed to keep Monoma at bay more than he ever could with Bakugo, but there was still only so much he would do. Shinsou had begun training with Aizawa. He had told Midoriya about it. The two boys had decided to do some extra training together when they could. No one really knew about it, not because they didn't want to, but because it never came into the conversation. The more time the two spent together, the more they realized how similar they were. They both were victims of the bullying of society. Sometimes they would sit in a comfortable silence after training before calling it a day. They had found a friend that they could relate to in a way that others couldn't. Even with Monoma, Midoriya's new class was something he really enjoyed and sometimes his favorite part of the day, and that was nice. As the class went on, the constant teasing from Monoma began to settle down. It mostly just turned into sly remarks that only came here and there. Midoriya thought that the worst of it was over, and he would mostly only have to deal with Bakugo. I'm just saying that I don't think there are any useless quirks. Some just don't attract as much attention. Like I once saw a person who could turn into smoke. Maybe at first thought it doesn't seem like much, but let's say that they're a hero. They would be good at infiltration if you think about it. They could get through small cracks and be harder to track through most alarms. Shinsou nodded. But what about attacks? Before Midoriya could answer, someone else decided to join the discussion. They could obviously suffocate them until they pass out or even use their quirk to avoid attacks, Monoma said without even looking at them. True, but what if they can make only part of them into smoke so they could both attack and defend at the same time? The two boys got into a concentrated discussion about how the quirk would work. Shinsou couldn't wrap his mind on how Midoriya could just have a semi-normal conversation with the person who had been poking fun at him, but before he could even continue his train of thought, Hatsume walked over. What are they talking about? She asked Shinsou. The possibilities of having a quirk that turns you into smoke. Really? Well, just think about it. Imagine what kind of support items they could need. Midoriya turned to face Hatsume. Well, that depends. Can they turn items they want into smoke or only themselves? And with that line, a whole new train of thought led a conversation between the three. They were going at it nonstop. Ideas and thoughts seemed to only lead to more questions. Midoriya grabbed a notebook and began to write down these ideas frantically. Shinsou was just trying to keep up with him. Something told him that he would need to get used to this, but at the moment, only one word popped into his head. Nerds. A few weeks had passed since the three students had their what Shinsou dubbed nerd out. Slowly but surely, they had become closer as friends. Monoma's constant teasing had evolved into a friendly one that happened once in a while. It was a rough start for the blonde to get used to Hatsume, but he eventually began to understand her. The group had decided to have a study session together for their upcoming test. The exams in the class were different in that they were not one right answer. It was always a short essay on the capabilities of a prompt quirk. Many in the class tended to enjoy the freedom it gave, but it did not mean that it was easy. Aizawa gave them the 4 possible prompts that they could get a week before to study with. The group was to meet at a local cafe in the area. As the evening approached, they each got ready to head out. Earlier that day, Midoriya's friends had asked if he wanted to get some work done with them, but he declined, saying that he had a test to study for. On his way to the cafe, he had run into Hatsume. They automatically began discussing some improvements that she had been working on for his hero suit. At some point, they had interlocked arms. It had happened so naturally that they hadn't noticed till they had gotten to the cafe. They decided to wait outside for the other two to arrive. "I think that you should be using more armor on your suit. You're a close combat person, so it'd be good to have more protection on you." "Yeah, that would be amazing. I guess taking hit after hit with no protection isn't making it any easier." That was when Monoma had appeared, waving to them as soon as they had spotted him. It didn't take Shinsou long after that to arrive. Walking inside together, they had quickly ordered drinks and sat down at a table, pulling out their notebooks and beginning to go over the given prompts. They looked over each other's notes and debating what theories made the most sense or improving on their drafted ones. "Okay, so is it just me, or did that last quirk sound a lot like Kachan's?" Midoriya asked, raising an eyebrow. "Yeah, but it exploded before turning into a controlled fire," Shinsou pointed out. "Speaking of Bakugo, why do you have a childish nickname for him? He doesn't seem like the person to have one," Monoma asked. "Oh, we were childhood friends. I know that we are much older now, and a lot of things have changed, but I still call him by that name," Midoriya awkwardly answered. "So what would happen if you called him Bakugo?" Monoma began to think. Shinsou smirked, understanding what he was getting at. "I've never tried." "Maybe you should. Wonder if he would admit that he wants you to call him Kachan," Shinsou said. Midoriya put up his hands in defense, but then put them down as he thought about it. He was getting curious about it. I don't know," he finally answered. Hatsume poked fun at the fact that he might. Monoma joining in, Shinsou laughed along, and Midoriya surprisingly decided to also do his own teasing at the idea. "You need to try it one day. Next time our classes have a jointed training, you're doing this and I'm recording." Monoma felt that Bakugo was the cockiest of 1A, and knocking him down a notch didn't seem like a bad idea. "You have to send me that video when it happens," Shinsou said. Hatsume nodded to say that she also wanted the video. "Wait, we should probably get each other's phone numbers for that to happen," Midoriya pointed out. Hatsume jumped into action quickly, asking each of them their phone numbers before creating a group chat for them. They each saved the new contacts in their phones. They kept talking for the rest of the evening. Midoriya told interesting stories that happened in 1A as Monoma listened and chuckled along. Hatsume tended to bring up some interesting theories about quirks, starting a few fast-paced parts in the conversation. Shinsou listened most of the time, but he did put more of his thoughts in as time passed. If someone had told the green-haired boy that he would be laughing along with the 3 people in front of him, he would have said that that was impossible, but here he was. In a way, he had never felt before he was comfortable. It wasn't to say that his other friends made him uncomfortable, it was just that he could speak his mind freely and he wasn't put down or praised, but his thoughts were added upon. Shinsou felt that he had found a happy place. He felt safe with these people, who didn't just see his quirk at a surface level as many others had done. They saw the possibilities, and not just his but all quirks. They didn't label a quirk as good or bad, and it made him feel safe. He couldn't always keep up with their train of thinking, but what ideas he did put in was not overlooked. He was treated as an equal. He was treated normal. In their form, anyway. Hatsume had friends in her class. She was a talented person when it came to creating new support items. Her ways were a little unconventional at times, but that didn't stop her. She had her peers in class, but they had no field experience. Knowledge was limited, but here were 2 people in the hero course that was not only willing to talk to her, but wanted to. They had the same interest in learning and improving upon quirks as she did. Oddly, though, She felt that here she was more than just her brain, and she could talk about other things she liked without being questioned. Monoma was not one to take back his words often or at all, yet here he was talking with Midoriya from 1A, the class he had poked fun at. Maybe this once he would admit that he was wrong, but just with this one person. He felt calm sitting with these people because he could let out his nerdier side with them. They were hardworking students that didn't just feel like their quirk made them better, but wanted to improve on it. He could get used to hanging around them. They, after a while, finally decided to leave the cafe and go get food as it was getting late. They actually had a fairly quiet walk to get food. After eating and having a few more laughs, they called it a day. Right, I have to get home before my mom starts worrying. This was fun, Midoriya said. Monoma plastered on a small smile. Yeah, maybe we should hang out again another time, Shinsou stated. Yeah. All right, are you guys just gonna say yeah, or are we gonna be the nerdy friend group? 'Cause I'm all for the latter. Hatsume excitedly wrapped her arms around Midoriya. Fine. Monoma rolled his eyes while smiling. Okay then, but let's be clear, you three are the nerds, Shinsou teased. They finally parted ways. As Hatsume was walking, she got the best idea she's had all day. She quickly grabbed her phone and began typing. The guys got a notification on their phones. Group chat name changed to the Quirk Nerds. All right, listeners, this concludes Chapter 1 of Unexpected Friends. Chapter 2 will be up next. I hope you all are enjoying this so far. If you like these fics, as always, I have the links in the descriptions to the original fics on AO3. You can always jump over, leave comments, and kudos to the original authors. And as always, thank you all so much for listening.